former anti-apartheid activist and a British MP, Lord Peter Hain, says Bain Company was utterly shameless in advising former President Jacob Zuma. Now, Zuma and former SARS Commissioner Tom Moyane are blamed for crippling the tax agency's capacity. The two were fingered in the first part of the state capture report for alleged tender irregularities and kickbacks awarded to the management consulting firm. Lord Peter Hain joins us now from London. A very good morning to you, Lord Hain, and thank you very much for making time for us. I want to start off with your efforts in the UK. You are fighting to have Bain and Company's operating license there suspended until the company has repaid what it earned during the state capture era here in South Africa. Has there been any response from Prime Minister Boris Johnson's office?
Not yet, and I wouldn't have expected it. It was only a couple of days ago that he'd had the letter following last week's recommendation from Justice Zondo's commission into state capture that Bain operated unlawfully. And I do not think that a British government should allow companies that operate unlawfully elsewhere in the world to operate here in Britain. And the same should go for the United States, European countries, or anywhere else for that matter.
Yeah.
And when it comes to repaying fees, Bain say that they've repaid the 168 million of fees they earned from the South African Revenue Service, SARS, but they haven't paid back the 2 billion rand of fees that they earned during the state capture period from state-owned enterprises, which we know were deeply corrupted and looted by the Zuma and Gupta reign.
Yeah. You're saying that you are vowing to do exactly the same, which is to try and have companies like Bain blacklisted. So you're saying that you're vowing to do exactly the same for companies that will later be found to have also acted in exactly the same way as Bain. My question to you is, for those corporates, though, as you've mentioned, who say that they have paid back some of the monies that they earned unlawfully, such as McKinsey at Eskom, for example, will you still be on that path to say, suspend their operations until they have repented for their actions?
If Judge Zondo's commission says they acted unlawfully, yes. No, we await the reports on those corporates. But it is very clear to me, and I think to everybody who's looked into this, that the wholesale looting of the South African Treasury and all its state-owned enterprises, from Eskom to South African Airways right across the board, would not have happened without the complicity, the connivance of KPMG and McKinsey and Bain & Co. and SAP and the banks, HSBC and Standard Chartered and Bank of Baroda in the main, because the money was looted, then it was moved out through the bank's financial pipelines through Dubai and Hong Kong and elsewhere, and then disappeared. And the point here, and we can't continue to allow this to happen globally, and this is my real point to Boris Johnson and other governments around the world, is that if you really want to put your money where your mouth is and not simply condemn corruption and money laundering but actually stop it, then you have to act against these global corporates so that they will not do this either in South Africa again or any other country in the world again. They've got to feel the pain or nothing will change.
Yeah. Are you aware of any real effort being made in the U.S., which is where Bain & Company comes from? Are you aware whether the U.S. government is responding at all to some of the requests that are being made by one of the civil groupings here in South Africa who have written to the U.S. to say, this company has done us wrong?
Yes, I've seen those reports, and I hope it's the case, because Bain & Company was originated from America. It's got offices right across the world, including London, and therefore my letter to Prime Minister Johnson is about it it being within UK jurisdiction here in London.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's an American-based headquartered company, and I hope the Americans will act against it, because otherwise we will see, if not Bain Company, it will be somebody else who takes advantage of corrupt politicians and public officials.
Lord Hain, you'll probably be aware that in South Africa, Bain Company's license, or should I say suspension, was lifted not so long ago by a business umbrella group called Business Leadership South Africa, on the back of the release of the first installment of the Zondo Commission report and the findings that they acted unlawfully and should be further investigated with a view to prosecute this company. What should this business body be doing and saying right now?
I'm baffled by this decision. Business Leadership South Africa has played an important role in recent years, not least in calling out state capture and corruption and anybody who's been associated with it, including businesses. But what they're really saying here is it doesn't matter that the Zondo Commission said Bain Company acted unlawfully. It doesn't matter that the details in the report are absolutely devastating about the way it embarked upon, under former President Zuma and his henchman in SARS, Tom Moyane, the wholesale dismemberment of SARS, turning it from one of the most respected tax-collecting agencies in the world into a pure shadow of its former self. And that was a deliberate policy. Now, if you are a reputable company, how can you possibly be associated with a mission like that and earn the fees that they did? So I find it absolutely amazing that Business Leadership South Africa said, never mind, you've apologized, all is well, back in the fold, carry on as usual. That is not acceptable if South Africa is to have its reputation held high in the business sector in a way that can make a new start for the country.
Interestingly, the article that you penned, which was published yesterday on the Business Day newspaper here, in that very same page was the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa's opinion piece, Busi Mavuso, who wrote something along the lines that they are committed to making sure that corruption is rooted out in South Africa. Does her leadership have any credibility at all on issues of corruption until they do and say something about their association with Bain right now?
Well, look, I'm not going to comment on individuals. I'm sitting in London. This is a matter for South Africans and its business community to resolve. But all I can say is I just couldn't believe that statement. A week after the Zondo Commission and its absolutely coruscating, devastating indictment of Bain Company's behavior, then the BLA comes out and said, all right, you've apologized, carry on. That's not acceptable. There's got to be penalties for these companies. They've all, at least most of them have apologized. Well, that's fine. They drag kicking and screaming to apologize, by the way. And Bain Company have still not fully done so. They're still wriggling and twisting, saying, well, we've been misunderstood and blah, blah, blah. This is about looting and dismembering the South African voters' institutions to protect them in a deliberate move. And yet, here we have the leadership of business in South Africa saying, we stand by this company, when it is under investigation after the Zondo Commission's recommendations for prosecution. I can't understand this, and I just ask them to think again, or they will be the target of criticism right across the world, and who wants that?
Finally, in the article that I referred to that was published on Business Day yesterday, you had these words to say on the actions of Bain whistleblower Ethel Williams, and that is that he should be treated as a hero by President Cyril Ramaphosa, not forced to flee South Africa for his safety, rather than be punished by Bain and the South African business community, he should be lauded as an exemplary executive acting for the good of his country. What should be the first steps of our government towards people like Ethel Williams, like Themba Masego, who was hounded out of the Zuma government for not wanting to cooperate with the Guptas? What should be our first steps by government towards these people?
Well, I think the president should stand by them publicly. He has made good statements in protecting whistleblowers, said that they should be supported, not hounded. But in practice, what has happened to Ethel Williams is the very opposite. He's now living in the United Kingdom after threats to his safety, after the failure of the business community to stand by him. He should have been given another job and lauded, as I say, as a model for how an executive should behave. If they see corruption and if they see wrongdoing and criminality in their own organization, as he did in Bain Company, has been supported and vindicated and praised by the Zondo Commission, then they should be held up as examples for everybody else, and not punished and treated as a pariah and forced to leave the country. I mean, this is not apartheid South Africa, when people like my parents and many others were forced to flee the country to join Oliver Tambo and others in leading the international anti-apartheid campaign. That was the police state, when the rule of law didn't apply in apartheid South Africa. This is the new South African democracy, or so we're told, with a new constitution, the right to reject governments and to install other parties in government, and a judiciary which is independent. And in that context, from the president down through business leadership, South Africa and everybody else, people who stand by the law, like Ethel Williams, should be held up as examples, not forced to flee the country.
Lord Peter Hain, thank you very much for your time, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.